I like you turn the camera off first, though, because you're like a gentleman. Well, I know how I'm doing because you were looking at me on video a second ago and you told me I look dreadful and tired.
You look terrible. I'm not gonna lie. You really look awful. What's going
Thanks,
on,
man? Well, as you know, I am back in California in Berkeley.
San
if you want to be
Francisco,
specific.
right?
That's San Francisco.
Right.
Yep. But I'm at the Mathematical Sciences Research Institute, which is the spiritual home of Numberphile, and I'm hanging out with awesome mathematicians. But more importantly, the World Series is on at the moment.
Oh, is it?
This is a baseball event, Gray.
I know it's baseball. I grew up in New York. I know what it is.
So the 3 games that are being played in San Francisco, the middle 3, that's where the Giants are at home, are, as we record, the 3rd and final of those 3. So the 5th game of the World Series is being played tonight in San Francisco, and I have purchased a ticket.
Ooh.
The last couple of nights I've had reason to be in San Francisco, and both nights I've seen the stadium all lit up and felt the excitement of the city, and I felt bad, to the point where I was actually going to go and just stand outside the stadium just so I could say I was near it.
That would be really sad.
Yeah, I know.
Just moping around, kicking the ground with your foot, listening to everybody on the inside having a great time.
Yeah.
Was that your plan?
Well, it kind of was, actually. But remember we did a podcast not long ago where I talked about being in Bangkok when they had that big flotilla on the river? And
yes.
I didn't go and see it, and it was a mistake.
Yes, you learned an important life lesson.
I learned an important life lesson, and I've decided to not make that mistake this time, because after today, I'll always be saying, I was in San Francisco during the World Series, but I didn't go. So I've said, no, that's not going to happen. So I am going to go. Except there is a problem, and that is I need to print my ticket out because I bought it online, and the Institute's printers are down at the moment. So it could be a cruel falling at the final hurdle, but I'm sure I'll sort that out.
Well, I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, so do I. Like, I'm a little bit excited about it. Well, I was excited about it. I was thinking I'm going to go to the game and like take a selfie and say, look, here I am at the World Series. But now you told me how terrible I look. I feel a bit bad now. Like, I don't want to do it anymore. I just want to crawl under a rock and put on a face mask and moisturize.
Cucumbers over your eyes, is that the idea?
Yeah.
Well, you don't have to take a selfie there. You can just take a picture at the World Series as your memory shot.
But do you know what? Just
What?
between you and me, there are actually some professional photographers at the game who will probably take better pictures of the stadium than me. So if I'm just going to take a picture of the stadium with my iPhone, like, why would I bother doing that? I could just download a really good picture. The whole idea is to have my own perspective on it. And what can I add to it other than to say, look, it's me. I was there. You know, they didn't go all the way to the moon and not take a picture of any astronaut on the moon because they've got to show the astronaut was there. How was it on the moon, Mr. Armstrong and Aldrin? Oh, good. Look at all these pictures we took. Oh, did you take any pictures of yourselves? Oh, no. That would be self-indulgent. We didn't do that. We just took some pictures of rocks and sand. We didn't want to spoil the scenery with like showing that humans were there.
I love how your go-to analogy is very often the Apollo space program. Whenever we're talking about anything, it comes back to some kind of Apollo space program metaphor.
Pretty much.
So you going out to a baseball game and taking a picture of yourself is just like astronauts on the moon taking a picture of themselves. It's the same. It's the same scale.
Do you know there is no proper photograph of Neil Armstrong on the moon? There is one almost sort of accidental one that was taken incidentally while Buzz Aldrin was photographing something else and Armstrong's off to the side. But there's no like posed picture or just normal picture of Neil Armstrong on the moon. Like still photo. Obviously there's video footage and stuff, but they didn't take one. Like the classic one from Apollo 11 is of Buzz Aldrin. Although you do see Neil Armstrong reflected in his visor. But there's no real proper picture of Armstrong on the moon doing a moonwalk. There is a nice picture of him in the module.
They're in their little space outfits. You can't tell who's who anyway. It doesn't matter. It could be anybody in those suits.
Yeah, that's true. They do. Sometimes in the later moon missions when they didn't have the gold reflecting thing down all the time, you see their faces a bit more. But you're right. You don't. It's hard to see their faces. That's why in the later Apollo missions they started putting a red stripe on the helmet of the commander, so you could even tell who was who. Because when they were both wearing the same white suits, it was hard to even tell who was who. So anyway, I'm going to the baseball, and I'm 50-50 about a selfie now.
If you do a selfie, I want you to put a red stripe on your face.
So you can tell it's me.
So I can tell you the commander.
One other thing that's been new to me on this US trip. I mean, obviously I've been to the US before, numerous times. And as you are aware, they drive on the other side of the road here. They drive on the wrong side of the road. As an Australian and English person that I am.
The literal right side of the road.
Yes. The literal right side, but the actual incorrect side. This has never really posed much of a problem before. If you're somewhere like New York, there are just cars all the time. It never causes a problem. On this trip, for the first time, is causing me a problem. I'm staying up in the hills this time, kind of, I don't know what you'd call it, like a sort of a little quiet suburban tree area. Very, very quiet, very nice. And I'm walking to work each day, which is like a half-hour walk. But I'm walking through these kind of hilly tree streets with hardly any cars and no, I'll call them sidewalks because I'm in America, no footpaths. So I'm having to walk on the road all the time. And there's not a lot of cars. And when you're not constantly seeing cars and you have to walk on the road all the time around like all these blind corners and bends, suddenly I am always disoriented about where I should be walking, and will cars be coming from behind me or in front of me and around the corner. And for the first time, I feel like I'm in peril on the roads all the time, and I'm always making stupid decisions. I find it ironic that when there's hardly any cars, that's when I'm in more danger than when I'm in a big city where there's just cars everywhere.
That sounds exactly right to me. It's when danger is infrequent that you get lazy, as opposed to when danger is omnipresent, you are much more on your guard. So it makes total sense that it's much more deadly.
It's also more dangerous here because everyone drives a Prius and they're like silent assassins, those things.
They are.
If you've got a podcast going, like they come up behind you, you don't even know they're there. Like all these hippies in their Priuses.
That's true, especially if you are going around those curves so the Prius can't kick into high gear and use its actual the gasoline motor. If it's on the electric motor, yeah, that is definitely silent driving. I used to drive a Prius. And it was always remarkable about how quiet they are.
You used to drive a Prius?
Yeah, I drove a Prius cross country twice.
Like hired, or did you own one?
It was my parents' car that I was driving. I don't really have a car in the States. This was years and years ago. But yeah, I drove that car so much it honestly felt like it was my car.
Oops, sorry, Gray's parents, for my disparaging comment about hippie Prius owners.
They won't mind. My parents are not hippies.
What's up with you? You all right? You well? Have we got much to follow up from last time? What we do have
a bunch of follow up. The first thing I wanted to say is I wanted to apologize because I did cut one of your boring stories from the last podcast when we were together. I honestly, right now, I can't even remember what the heck it was that I cut. But the only thing I felt bad about was in the middle of it, you mentioned the existence of your new Brady subreddit. And so I just wanted to bring it up because I felt when I was like, ooh, I didn't want to cut that. Like, I'm sorry for that one tiny bit of self-promotion, but it was in the middle of a bunch of nonsense or something. I don't remember exactly. But So I did want to start out strong by giving you an opportunity to tell the good people that there is a place now on the Reddit for your discussions of, is it all your channels? Is it going to be for everything?
Nearly every video gets put there because I sort of figure there isn't really one place to sort of follow where all my different videos are, because I've got all these different Twitter channels and different Facebook pages and YouTube channels. It does become a bit, so there is sort of one place now, which is just Brady Harron as a subreddit. That's great. That's turned out well for me. So instead of being sort of buried in the middle of a boring story at the end of a podcast, I now get a big plug right at the start.
It's practically the lead.
What do you say? Like /r/
Yeah, you usually say it's r/Brady Harron.
Do it, people. Do
it. Go there, subscribe to the subreddits, and participate in conversations about numerous videos. Actually, how many times a day do you post to that then? Is it twice a day? I
try to only put one thing on there a day. So if I have like two videos go out in a day for some reason, I tend to put the other one on like a day or so later because I don't want to
spread it out.
Yeah, I don't want to annoy people any more than I already do.
So there you go.
Thank you. You don't cut it now. Don't cut it.
No, I won't. I promise I won't cut it this time. But I think you will.
I don't
like the Reddit conversations. It's good. It's much better than the YouTube ones. So that's that.
We will have a talking about Reddit comment threads one day because I know it's close to your heart,
Yeah, it's a topic I've been putting off for forever, mainly because I never have time to prepare for the show. So all the prepared topics, I think, we'll do them later. And then, of course, that means we never do them. But
Yeah.
Except for those first 3. And then after that, it was all downhill. The next thing I wanted to bring up was something from a few shows ago. So this is now ancient follow-up. I think this was originally in our monkey copyright one. But we got into a little bit of a disagreement over how many people in America die from electrocution in their bathrooms.
Yes.
Because the genesis of this conversation was that in the UK, to my eternal frustration, you don't have real electrical outlets in the bathroom. You have these wimpy shaver outlets that's nothing is compatible with. You can't really use them very well. But so it means things like if you want to have a hairdryer or a stereo or whatever in your bathroom, you can't because there's no place to plug it in.
Bathroom or place that is full of water, as I also know it as.
Yes, the place that is full of water and steam and all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So your position was that there must be way more people dying in America because America allows such nonsense. And we didn't know. We were just kind of speculating. And I figured this has to be basically nobody dies from electrocution. And
yes,
someone sent in some numbers from, let me see if I can pull it up here.
I have a suspicion about who was right on this.
Well, I'm bringing it up. If it went the other way, this is just, we don't need to talk about it. My computer, I think you'll be happy to know, is in a different location. I'm in my office as opposed to my house. So it is not as easy for me now to browse the internet. My laptop is in a slightly awkward position. So I will be listening to you with 100% intensity throughout the entire duration.
I'll believe that when it happens, but all right.
So anyway, there's just some numbers from the U.S. Where was it? Oh, shoot. I just took the screenshot of it. But it was a federal agency. They unfortunately don't break it down by rooms in a house. But their estimate was that about 50 people a year in the United States die from electrical-related injuries.
Well, that's 50 more than they should, Gray.
It is 50 more than they should.
But it is much, much lower than I would have guessed, I must admit.
Whatever the word should means in this situation. And yes, so they run, but basically this is you can round this off to 0 in a population of more than 300 million people, that your chance of dying from electrocution is basically 0. And so even if we pretended that all of those happen in the bathroom, it's just, this falls under the category of completely freak accident.
Tell that to the person whose brother died by electrocution in the bathroom.
Well, it would still be a freak accident, but it would be an insensitive thing to say to that person. But it's, it doesn't change the reality of the situation.
It is low. It is low. You Americans obviously know how to handle your electricity.
I'm sure death by wild animal is approaching that number if we add up all the grizzly bear and alligator
Well, you shouldn't have wild animals in the bathroom either.
That is entirely true. But yes, it is basically nothing.
You win that one.
They do have just a couple of little interesting points here, saying that the age was relevant. If you are 40 to 60 years old, you are twice as likely to be one of those 50 people. And if you are male, you are 6 times as likely to be one of those people. So this to me sounds like dad zone, right? We're talking about right? Males who are 40 to 60, they're working on something. And then, of course, at the bottom there, it mentions that the most likely cause for the fatal electrocution is power tools or large appliances. So this is the cause of those 50 deaths a year. So anyway, that's a follow-up from several shows ago on that. So
it does beg the question why the UK has introduced this kind of nanny state overprotective, you can't have electricity anywhere near your bathroom rule. Was it just born of a couple of freak accidents and they got a bit draconian, or there's obviously a story here.
Well, I know that the UK redid their electrical system after World War II. They changed a whole bunch of the electrical codes at that point because the whole country had been, bombed into oblivion. And they if we're going to rebuild everything, let's redo the whole electrical code. And there are many, many things that I like about the UK wiring system and how it works. I think it is very interesting. I used to have to teach this as part of GCSE physics. My guess is it's just one of those things when people are updating the code, they say, well, why don't we just make it safer in the bathrooms? It's just sounds like a reasonable thing to do. And who's the guy who votes against safety? No one. So I can easily see that being just almost an afterthought, and then it just becomes part of the electrical code. I'm sure somebody out there knows. But yeah, score 1 on the Gray versus Brady who's right chart, I guess.
Well, do you know what?
What?
I'm going to give you another point.
Oh boy, I'm starting out strong.
I'm giving you one for free here because for various reasons, which might come up later on in the podcast, I think it was you and I, were having a discussion recently about how you start a 747 plane.
That was us.
Yeah, because there was a 747 plane next to us, and we were like, I wonder if someone could just jump in and take off and steal a plane if it was, if it had fuel. And your position, I think, was pretty much you reckon you probably could just get in and start her up and go.
Here's what the question was: Is there any additional security in the inside of the cockpit to prevent someone who just walks in there from taking off with the plane?
Yeah, like is there a key or a code?
A key or a
something?
secret code or something. A secret handshake with the airplane, maybe? I don't know. My position was no, that I was going to guess that the entire security is based on the fact that 747s are huge and in inconvenient locations. So you don't need a key as additional protection because the 747 in an airport is its own kind of protection.
Whereas my position was perhaps reinforced by the post 9/11 environment where it has been shown that terrorists are willing to learn how to fly planes and use them as weapons. I thought perhaps maybe they had introduced some kind of at least like keypad code or something to start the navigation system or something. And I did mention to you that my friend was a 747 pilot and very au fait with the controls of a jumbo jet. So I did happen to ask him the other day, and you are right.
Hey!
He said as long as you can probably read a checklist, you can easily start a 747 to the point where you could then fly it down the runway and take off. He said, I think he said it would take 2 turns of a switch to get the engines running. 2-0 to you. And I am very surprised. I can imagine before sort of 9/11 how that would be the case. But, now that they've put all these, Fort Knox style doors on the cockpits and all these sort of things, I would have thought the least thing they would do would be to put like a pin code on the start pad of the plane or something. I'm not saying you need to have a set of keys or something because obviously you could lose keys.
Yeah, and boy, would that pilot be chagrined when
that
he
would be
shows
bad.
up
Like, I can just imagine him doing the pat down of his pockets.
Yes,
God, where are the keys to the plane?
That's exactly right.
But no, as long as she's fueled up and ready to go, it's all yours. 2-0 to Gray.
Oh, thank you for giving me that one.
Yeah. What's next? Oh, tweeting. I was having was it my paper cut? I think it was my paper cut.
You were complaining about people live tweeting TV for your paper cut. People
who live tweet TV, like, if there's some show I plan to watch later. And someone did make the point, and I think maybe this is what we were grappling with but didn't say out loud. Maybe the rule of thumb should be you can only live tweet TV if the TV itself is live. So if what you're watching is a live event being broadcast live, then it's okay to be tweeting it live. If the event you're watching is recorded in any way, then you shouldn't be live tweeting it. I think that's not a bad rule of thumb.
So the first time that Breaking Bad is broadcasting, that does not count as live because it is not literally live. It has been pre-recorded.
Exactly. Whereas if by some amazing thing they decided, for the finale of Breaking Bad, let's like act it out live and transmit it live.
Well, actually, I think the thing that popped right into my head was 30 Rock did a actually live episode of their sitcom on TV. And so that would be the example that maybe breaks the rule here of can you live tweet the 30 Rock episode since they actually, like crazy people, did it live. And I can't even watch that show when it's been recorded because I'm so anxious for them knowing that it was done live.
The West Wing election debate between Matt Santos and Arnie Vinnick, I think, was done live as well before that. I happened to watch that a few days ago because I've just been rewatching the final series of The West Wing. I think that was done live as well. And it's so interesting because, you know what Aaron Sorkin dialogue is like. The West Wing dialogue's so amazing and snappy, and to see the actors even stumbling a little bit was amazing. I think that was. I don't know if it was. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was live. People will tell us. Anyway, good rule of thumb. I'm sure we can find little exceptions like 30 Rock, but I think that's a good rule of thumb.
I agree.
If the thing is happening live, like the humans are doing it live, then you can tweet it live.
I think, I agree. That is a very good rule of thumb. Thank you to whoever in the subreddit suggested that.
Another thing we discussed was the call of the void. I hadn't heard it called that before, but you talked about that feeling when you're standing on like a ship at night and you think, I could just jump off the ship into the water and no one would ever know.
Yes, I usually hear it in terms of you're standing on top of a cliff and you're feeling like I could just leap. That is the call of the void.
I thought of another time, because straight after the podcast, I had another experience where I experienced a similar emotion, and I just wanted to bring it up to see whether or not you ever have that feeling. Mm-hmm. And the other time I feel something that is comparable is posting a letter. You know, there's that moment where you put the letter into the mailbox, and once it goes in, you cannot get that back. Like, it's like, you know, have I got the address right? Did I put the right thing in the envelope? And there's that final second where you're holding the envelope where it's teetering on the postbox and you're like, shall I let it go? And then when you finally let it go, there's a weird moment of terror that, okay, I'm done now. I'm done. If I've written something wrong in that letter, or I shouldn't have sent it, or I got the address wrong. So I think those little red pillar postboxes in the UK have their very own call of the void.
Well, it's the call of the mailbox.
Yeah,
but it's a reverse call of the void, because it's a this cannot be undone feeling.
But that's the feeling. That's kind of the call of the void thing too. It's like, if I jump off the ship, I can't jump back on. There's like a permanence. There's a permanence to it. If I do it, that's it. If I do it, that's it. And I guess like that with posting a letter. Once I've done it, that's it. Once I've done it, it's gone. It's gone.
I'm only laughing because I agree with you 100%. And this is just, but this feels like such a tiny call of the void, or it's call of the void scaled down to such a mundane level as to be almost laughable. Yet I feel the same way every time. And you might think I'm not a person who mails very many letters, but one of my subbable perks is sending out postcards. And every time I drop a bundle of postcards into, there's a red post box by my office, I feel that exact same feeling of, oh God, did I write all those things out correctly? Did I mess it up? On my spreadsheet, did I get the lines wrong and I wrote the wrong thing to absolutely everybody, or all these postcards are going to the wrong places? And I do have that feeling, and now I will not ever be able to disassociate that from leaping off a cliff as well, that this is the call of the void. So I have to thank you for that.
All right. What did you call it? The call of the postbox?
Yes, that's what it is.
I'm just imagining a little voice inside now going, come to me, come to me. Have you got the postcode correct?
I still say that's why there's something about it that to me is the reverse of the call of the void, but it's the same. Yeah, it's the same feeling.
It's the same emotions. Yeah, it's a scary thing. Like, you know, it's a vortex into which you cannot go, and it's a point of no return. It's an event horizon for mail.
It is an event horizon for mail, and yes, I definitely do pause for much longer than is necessary.
Yeah, I do that too. You're just having a little last think and a little. Yeah.
I do with some of the automated deposit things at the bank as well.
I've never used one of them. I don't use them.
Yeah, those are scary because they are really big bins almost that you can pull out and put in a whole bunch of deposit slips. And the thing that I worry about is that at my bank, when I pull open the automatic deposit drawer, I am afraid of my glasses falling off my face and into the drawer. My glasses have never fallen off my face in any kind of normal situation, but it's the same feeling. It's like this big gaping maw is just waiting for me to drop important things into it and then accidentally let go of the handle and it snaps shut. And then I'm there half blind trying to explain to the bank people that my glasses are in there and I won't be able to get home unless they can get my glasses. Like, this is what I worry about this every time. And so I shouldn't even say this out loud. I often have one hand on or just touching my glasses. But this is crazy, right? Because that almost certainly increases the chances that my glasses are actually going to come off my face. Yeah. But it is the exact same feeling. So that is another call of the void scenario.
The world is full of perils for just normal guys like us, you know?
It really is. It really is.
Forget like, you know, astronauts and firemen and stuff like that. We've got to like put mail in post boxes and drop our deposit slips. I think we've probably exhausted the dangers of mailboxes.
I don't know.
You talked in the last podcast at some length about where to store your wallet and things and keys and what's going on there.
Okay. Yeah. So the end of the last show, if anybody made it past my first world complaining about my iPhone, there was another whole section about me complaining about how I arranged things in my pockets, which I'm sure was thrilling for people to listen to. But I know people made it to that section because I ended up getting inundated with feedback about how other people want to solve my problems. And there was a consistent theme to a whole bunch of the feedback that I thought is worth touching on. And so the problem was I have too many things in my pockets, right? That I don't know where to put my phone and my wallet, and then I have a pen and a stylus that I'm always carrying on me.
That's right. And your big phone sort of put you over a tipping point now where
yes,
it's thrown chaos. It's caused chaos.
It's not. Well. Anyway, I'm not going to dignify that. Anyway,
go on. Talk to me. Just give me the feedback then. What's the follow up? What's the latest?
So the consistent theme from people was pointing out the existence of two things. One of which is combined styli and pens. So you can get some styli that have a styli on one end, and then when you flip it over, it's a pen on the other end. And the second thing people pointed out was these iPhone cases that are also wallets. And so people were sending me these, like every dual wallet iPhone case in the world, I've seen people send and email me. And then the same thing with every stylus stroke pen in the world people have sent to me.
It's kind of a nerdy Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, sort of. But the reason why I just wanted to bring this up is this to me is a perfect example of the kind of thing I see very often, which is a worst of both worlds solution, where someone says, oh, hey, you want to turn these two things into one thing? Well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the worst parts of both of them and make one thing out of them together. And this is why, like, when I obsess about reducing the number of things in my life, you can imagine you very often come across worst of both worlds kind of problems.
So in one of those cases, like, give me an example there about how they've made them worse, like they've taken the worst elements and, I don't know, choose one and explain it to me.
Just for example, the wallet iPhone case. Well, now this is twice as cumbersome for getting anything out of my pocket twice as often. So now if I'm getting out just my credit cards, I also have to take my phone out at the same time. Or if I'm getting my phone out, I have all of the bulk of my credit cards as well. And
it's
also
still just one action. It's still like it's still
one action,
one thing,
but it is twice the weight. Okay. And also, when you start talking about,
you're a pretty strong guy. Like I'm sure
this is not strength issue. You know that perfectly well. It's just more awkward, right? And then also with these things, the wallet doesn't work very well as a wallet. Because you have to put a whole phone inside of it. So you have to give up all of these other features that a wallet can possibly have. Like, I spent forever trying to find my latest wallet. As you can imagine, I might be very picky about these sort of things.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I spent years trying to find a wallet that would work for me. And I finally found one, and I'm very happy.
I laugh at you for taking a long time to choose things. But I agree, choosing a wallet is very difficult.
Yeah.
It is a very difficult thing.
It's so personal, and you have particular needs of what you want. I finally found this company I like. They're called Bellroy. And if anybody is like me, if you were a picky person and trying to pick a wallet, I highly recommend them. They have a cute little owl logo.
I'm going to look into that.
I do. I really recommend them. They are quite good. So the combined wallet iPhone cases I have seen are just terrible. They're terrible at both things. And then it's the same thing with the stylus pen. I'm very picky about my pens. I'm very picky about my styli. And now you're trying to find a device that matches both of my needs for these two things. Like the weight of the pen has to be just right, but if you also have to stick a stylus in there, now it's just terrible at both things. So that is if you are a minimalist, the worst of both worlds is a kind of problem that you're going to come up against a lot, where combining a thing is actually worse than just having the two separate individual items. So
do you ever occasionally stumble over a gem that's the best of both worlds?
Yeah, you can definitely find best of both worlds things, but it because life is eternally disappointing, worst of both worlds is way more common than best of both worlds.
Okay. I see you put here in the follow-up something also about my wallet What's that? What's going on? Are you about to say something that does not cast me in a positive light?
Well, what I'm sure we'll talk about later. We met up recently, and I did get a chance to see your wallet very briefly when you took it out of your pocket at one point. And
Yeah.
I have literally never seen a human being with a larger, more stuffed wallet than yours.
I have quite a small wallet, which is why it looks so stuffed, because I am a big believer in having a small wallet, and because I always want a small wallet, it always is bursting at the seams. If I had a big wallet, it would look quite streamlined.
You must have had 60 pieces of paper in that wallet.
That's ridiculous.
Unless
you're counting all those £20 notes I had.
It's overflowing with money. No, I don't know what it was, but I looked when you folded over your wallet, there was big clear receipts, or I don't know what the heck it was, but this big thick white seam down the middle of your wallet that you're trying to press and crunch together to get it back into your pocket. Your wallet was absolutely just overstuffed. And all it made me think of is the famous Costanza wallet from Seinfeld, which was supposed to be a joke, but your wallet really did look like that.
Well, I probably hadn't done my monthly receipt clean out yet.
Oh, okay. That's there's always some reason. There's always some reason, but that's what it is. I was surprised that you were able to manage that wallet. So,
do you know what? I manage fine. I get by fine.
I'm glad you do. But I was surprised to see it in person.
You're so judgmental.
No, I am not judgmental. I'm not I was surprised to see it, and I couldn't live like that. But if it works for you, that's great. That's not judgmental.
I was surprised to see it, and I couldn't live like it. But I'm not judging.
But I'm not. I think this is if I was judging you, you would know it. But I just I'm glad it works for you.
Well, no, I agree. A streamlined wallet is better, but I've got better things to do in life than sit around field stripping my wallet.
That's right. It's totally fair. I completely agree, and I wish in very many ways I could be a more easygoing person, but such is not my lot in life. There are, I guess, sort of two more things that I wanted to follow up on.
Yeah.
The first one was we made an offhanded comment or I think I made the comment on the last show about there being far fewer Nobel Prizes than professional YouTubers with 1 million or more subscribers.
Yeah, we were sort of saying, well, of course the Nobel Prize has more cachet because there are fewer winners than there are million plus subscriber people.
Right. That's you can't swing a dead cat in San Francisco without hitting a whole bunch of people who have 1 million subscribers on their YouTube channel. So that the Nobel Prize just seems so much smaller.
Do you know what? Just to quickly interrupt before we finish that point, I was actually out with a few YouTubers in San Francisco the other night, and they were saying there are very few YouTubers in San Francisco, and anytime any of them become quite big, they always move to LA.
No.
To the point where they were all clinging to each other and said, we've got to start a little community here because there aren't many of them. So, I don't know. I mean, I don't know, but they were kind of listing on one hand all the YouTubers, the YouTube, like really big YouTubers with, I don't know how you define really big YouTubers. And
no, but
I know this is all very siloed as well, and there's probably a whole bunch somewhere else. But I'm just saying these people were bemoaning the lack of a YouTube community in San Francisco. That's all I'm saying.
That is totally fair enough. I think I said San Francisco because I just don't even like to think about LA because it is obviously the worst city in the civilized world. It is horrible. But if you want a career in the media or in entertainment in its broadest of forms, yes, you want to move to LA. And so if anyone follows the YouTube professional world at all, the pattern of someone starts a YouTube channel, they become relatively successful, and then at some point I'm moving to LA. And they don't even necessarily specify why. The answer is because they want to be professionally in the entertainment world. They want to do TV or other things. That's the only reason anybody moves to LA, because otherwise it's a horrible, horrible place.
On the other hand, Nobel Prize winners, you do get a lot of in San Francisco. In fact, Berkeley, where I'm at, the University of Berkeley, has, I think I've said this before, has car parking spaces that have NL written on them, which means they are reserved for Nobel laureates. So they have so many Nobel Prize winners at Berkeley, they even have their own car parking spaces.
That is great. That is really great.
The thing you were saying, that the Nobel Prize winners, we have since shed more light on this.
Yeah, so let me just pull up the exact
You're not supposed to say Nobel Prize winners, by the way, because it's not something you win. You're a laureate.
I thought laureate was like nominee.
No, the laureates are the people who have them. They don't reveal like the other people who were like nominated until like 50 years or something. So the laureates are the winners.
Oh, I did not realize that. After our last show, Thesmobo in the Reddit comments looked up the numbers. And at the time of the last show, there were 876 Nobel laureates. And there were 848 YouTube channels with over 1 million subscribers. So actually just under the number of Nobel laureates or YouTube channels with over 1 million.
There you go.
And then, okay, so we recorded a little while ago. And so just today I thought, let me look it up and see where it is. And as of our time of recording, Nobelprize.org now says there are 889 Nobel laureates. So I guess a few more were awarded since the last time we were there.
Yeah.
And there are 870 YouTube channels with over 1 million subscribers.
So by the time this podcast goes out, it may well have crossed over. But at the moment, we are still more prestigious than Nobel Prize winners.
Yes, just by 19. It is. I have to say, I'm surprised, and it is remarkable how close that number is. There's just 19 different. But yes, by the time I edit this and the time it goes up, it may very well be that we have just done the crossover point, because the channels that are below the 1 million subscribers are not below by a lot. And once you start getting up in those numbers, your subscribers tend to grow quite quickly. So yes, by the time you, dear internet listener, are hearing this, there may very well be more YouTube channels with 1 million subscribers than Nobel laureates, which seems like that's the way it should be in the world.
But I'm going to talk to the Berkeley people and see if they're going to give me a car parking space.
You let me know how that goes.
Yeah, that big YT or something for YouTube, and
Yes.
Wow, whoever's parked there must have like 1 million YouTube subscribers. Awesome. There you go. I wonder how many people have been to the summit of Mount Everest. Can you Google foo that for me? How many people?
The one time it's difficult for me to Google stuff. You explicitly ask. Okay.
How many people have summited Everest?
I feel like I'm surprised you don't know this off the top of your head.
Yeah, no, I'm a bit of an Everest buff, but I don't know.
How many people have stepped on the moon? You must know that off the top of your head.
12.
See, there we go.
I can name all the people who've walked on the moon. I collect their autographs.
Stupid Yahoo answers. I don't trust anything you say.
Well, I'm guessing it's over 1,000 for Everest.
Yeah, it's got to be. I mean, those Sherpas are shuffling people up there like nobody's business.
Yeah, carrying them on their backs.
Yeah,
by the bucket load. I thought you'd be quicker, Gray.
I know. I'm finding numbers, but they just don't agree, and that's the thing.
Whatever it is, it's going to be higher than the YouTube millionaires, isn't it? So we also have more prestige than someone who's summited Everest, in my opinion.
Well, again, because of the Sherpas, I might actually agree with you.
Yeah. Did you not have a Sherpa here? You get 1 million subscribers.
You made that joke last time.
Did I?
You made that exact same joke.
Did I?
About Sherpas helping you make your YouTube channel.
I don't even remember making that joke. Was it as unfunny that time as well?
It was better the first time.
It was better the first time.
Okay, I'm going to run with Wikipedia here. And they say, by the end of the 2010 climbing season, there had been 5,104 ascents to the summit by 3,142 individuals.
Okay.
So I guess there's a lot of repeat business on Mount Everest.
Yeah, I imagine you get a bit of that. That was worth it just to hear my joke again.
Yeah, no, it was great.
It's really scary now that I can't even remember corny jokes I've made. Do
you know what the terrible thing is?
What?
Since we started this podcast, I feel like I cannot remember for the life of me what we have talked about on the podcast, or what we talked about just in person, or what we've. I am terrified of telling the same stories again on the podcast, like an old man.
Yeah,
and I just know it is inevitable. Oh yeah,
that will happen.
We're only like 23 episodes in. What's going to happen if this thing goes on longer?
Just the last 2 podcasts, I feel we've reached that point where I've used all my good stuff. And like, so like now every time I go to say something, I'm like, oh, I'm sure I've told this before. It's also a damning indictment of how interesting I am that all the stuff that's come before is classified as my good stuff.
This is where it's so very different doing something like a podcast versus talking with your friends, because everybody knows with friends and family, you let people tell the same stories again. You'll hear the same stories from your family 100 times, and that's fine. Everybody's cool with that. But on a podcast, it's not cool anymore.
No.
You can't tell the same story every time.
The people need to be entertained.
Yes, the people do need to be entertained.
That's probably the reason it's so good to do so much follow-up.
Yes.
Because because then like if we're just reacting to what people we've never met are saying, there's a good chance, you know.
Yes. At least the thing we'll be talking about is new, if not the jokes about the thing.
That joke was new to the listeners, hopefully.
I think you said it on the last podcast, but this is again now I don't know. Did we say this?
Oh,
did
no,
we say
that's
this just
terrible.
in person, or did you say it on the podcast?
Let's move to the next follow-up item before I die of embarrassment.
Hello, Internet. This episode is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create your own professional website, portfolio, or online store. For a free trial and 10% off, go to squarespace.com and use offer code HelloInternet, all one word. I was actually just playing around with Squarespace today because they have released their new system, which is called Squarespace 7, which has a bunch of new templates on the front end and a whole bunch of redesigned options on the back end and different ways to manage your website. And it all looks really great and even easier to use than before. If you've been even slightly on the fence about signing up for Squarespace and you're thinking about making your own website, now is really the time to do it. Get in on the ground floor with their brand new system and give it a shot. You won't regret it. Again, Squarespace has my personal backing. There is nobody who comes to me who asks about setting up websites that I don't recommend Squarespace to. It really is the rare product that stretches the full gamut from people who know absolutely nothing about putting together a website to people who know everything about putting together a website. It is the solution for everyone, and it is just a total no-brainer. So many of my problems that I used to have when I ran my own website have been just completely eliminated, and Squarespace solves all of those issues for me. I really recommend them very, very highly. And you've heard me on these ads mention it before. They have all of their designs. They've been around for 10 years. They have this amazing support team who, again, I'm just constantly surprised at how fast they respond to any emails I send them. No matter what time of day it is, they're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They have the little iPhone app that I use all the time to update little typos and mistakes that I've made, or I can post new articles from that way. It's just an incredible, complete solution for all your websiting needs. So you can start a trial today with no credit card required and begin building your website. And when you decide to sign up for Squarespace, which you definitely will, don't forget to use the offer code HelloInternet, all one word. This gives you 10% off, and it lets them know that you heard about them through our show, which helps support us. So once again, we want to thank Squarespace for their support. Squarespace, everything you need to create an exceptional website. This has probably been one of the most sent links I have yet received, but the well-known internet guy _David Smith, who makes a bunch of iPhone apps for a living. He's a professional developer. He actually made something which is sort of a solution to one of my complaints about the iPhone from last time, which is that the icons are too far up for me to reach comfortably with one hand. Mm-hmm. And I will put the URL in the show notes, but he set up a thing where you can basically have blank apps at the top, but the cost is that you need to have a purely black background on your iPhone. So you can lower the apps, but you cannot have a wallpaper background. But if the lowerness of the apps is vitally important to you and you're willing to sacrifice your wallpaper, then this is a potential solution. So I will put that in the show notes if people are interested. And that is a very cool thing from _David Smith.
So they become kind of like stuffing or filler that will force the usable icons down into within thumb range.
Yes, he's basically using the trick of how iOS allows you to put bookmarks as kind of fake apps on your phone.
Yeah.
So that's the way he is doing that. But yes, you still can't have purely transparent ones, but he's done a clever little trick so that it doesn't even have to have anything in the name either. So it is a blank icon.
I tell you what, talking about Apple in the podcast, like we have the last couple of episodes, has taught me that I'm going to add Apple products to the list of politics and religion of things that you should not talk about.
Oh my God. Have you gotten feedback from the people?
Oh no, I haven't got. I've just sort of been following a bit of what, people say on Reddit and Twitter and that. Like, do people does it matter that much? Like, I know we talked about it a lot, but I mean, we spent an hour talking about flags and no one complained.
Yeah.
And we talk about an iPhone that lots of people actually own and we use, and we're internet-y people on a podcast called Hello Internet, and people are outraged that we would deign to talk about the release of this world-famous technology product that everyone's buying.
Yeah.
I
So
don't know.
I screenshotted this little moment because I thought this summed up things very well. This is from one of our old shows, but I had this interaction with an anonymous internet person where they said in response to one of the shows, "I can't believe you're a Mac guy." And then I replied, "I can't believe anybody cares," which really is my opinion on this. And then he immediately replied, "That's such a Mac user thing to say." It's like, you can't win. There's no
That's
win.
I know you are, but what am I?
Yeah, it's just only Mac users would say that they don't care, that other people. It's like, oh God, there's no winning on this. And
I can see why that person has replied that. That's playing to the stereotype that Mac people are all snobby and who care, I can see why that reply was replied to your reply, but I also understand what you mean.
Yeah. I guess the
does it
thing.
matter? I don't know. I'm surprised people care so much, but anyway,
People care intensely, and I think
I don't mind that people have a preference. I don't mind that people strongly feel that Android is better than Apple, or the Yankees are better than the Giants, or whatever. But there's nothing wrong with just talking about it. It's I don't know. Anyway,
we have complained a little bit about some iOS stuff on the podcast, and I don't know if you saw it, but I wrote an article a little while ago complaining about some particular problems that I have with iOS or things that I want Apple to change. And I've done these a couple times. And always with these things, I get nothing but an enormous amount of feedback from people saying, switch to Android. And
well, let me encapsulate because I've followed a bit of what they're saying to you, and it is something you should address. It is a fair question, because everyone knows you are incredibly fussy. You like things just the way you like them. You spend months looking for a wallet. You spend hours deciding on a wallpaper for your phone. So you're a guy who likes things the way he likes things.
Yeah.
And yet you do like Apple products, and you very much get what you're given when you buy Apple stuff. Whether you happen to like it, but you do get what you're given.
Right.
Whereas there's this lack of you can't customize things as much. How do you justify that? Justify that, and then let's move on.
Okay. Well, I guess my coming to Apple story, or really my coming to the iPhone story, let's just constrain it to that, was when I was originally thinking about getting a real cell phone as opposed to my little, like everybody used to have, the little flip phone that you can just send text messages. But when the time came where I was thinking, I'm going to get a smartphone, I assumed, knowing myself, that I was going to get an Android phone for exactly the same reason, which is, well, I know that I like to have an incredible amount of control over the way everything looks and the way everything operates, and that is not what Apple gives you. So it just seemed very obvious to me, I'm going to buy an Android phone. And I always just assumed that that's what it was going to be. But when it actually came time to pick a side on this team of Android versus iPhone, and when I went to look, and for the record, this was around the time of the iPhone 4. The Android stuff, to me, yes, it was more customizable, but I found everything just more hideous and awful. Just the default way everything looked, the apps that were available at the time, how they worked, how they interacted with things. And on the iPhone, yes, you had far fewer choices, but my perception was you were starting from a much better place. And so I was actually quite surprised that I ended up with iPhone. I always just assumed that I would end up with Android. And to this day, a huge portion of the reason that I use iOS now as my primary platform is the strength of the apps that are on iOS. So like, it's really easy to complain about the operating system because everybody has problems with the operating system. Oh, I wish it did this. Oh, I wish it let me put icons over this way. I wish it had a real dark mode. But the operating system is really just a gateway to the applications. And now this is where my fussiness can come back into play because on iOS, you have an enormous choice of applications that are both very high quality and maybe subtly different or do things in little different ways. I should put a link to someone put together a big chart of all of the iOS text editors and all of the various features they have. And the list is just forever. And I spent a long time going through that list and selecting, okay, I needed to be able to do this. It needs to be able to do this. And it needs to be able to do this. And oh, by the way, I also need 3 of these apps because I want to use each of them for different things. So the incredible strength of the app ecosystem is why I use it. But you know, the operating system complaints are kind of universal to everybody. But I think the apps are very useful tools to me. But just like with talking about your wallet or keys before, I don't judge people who use Android devices. If it works for you, that's awesome. And I'm always really curious when I see people using things that are different from what I'm using. Oh, tell me, why do you use this? What do you like about it? I cannot help but always be very curious and interested in what everybody else is using to get their own work done. But so that's I guess that's partly why I'm on iOS. But
I think the question or the thing that people will want to ask you, or that Android people will now have, is how often do you dip back into the world of Android to see how things have changed? Do you every 6 months, do you really have a proper look and think, actually, have things improved? Is it worth a switch? Do you do that?
No. So I probably haven't touched an Android phone in the last 6 months, is going to be my guess from the last time I've actually looked at one. And this is exactly it. People want to argue with you about, oh, well, you know, back when you were looking at the iPhone 4, sure, Android wasn't that great, but you don't know how awesome it is now. And this is just irrelevant. This is not like, it is not my responsibility to keep on top of these things all the time because of something called switching costs, where to move from one platform to another is an enormously costly and time-consuming affair. And I don't know how to put this, but one of the things I have noticed from the replies that I normally get on Twitter is that the people who just tell me, use an Android phone, they seem to be college-age people or much younger people. And it reminds me of the old joke about Linux, that Linux is only free if you don't value your time. And I used to use Linux in college, and I loved Linux. And I used to think, why doesn't everybody use Linux? It's free. All you need to do is constantly put in an enormous amount of time to make sure that it is always working. But now that I am an older person and I am self-employed, you get into the situation where, like you were talking last time, you don't want to upgrade your Mac because you don't want Avid, the editor that you use, to change. And there comes a point at which once you start valuing getting things done or your work much more than your time, switching costs become a much, much bigger deal. And so even if, let's say we could just measure which operating systems were better in some possible way. And let's say we knew for a fact that Android was 20% better for me. I don't think it is, but let's just say that we knew that it was.
Yeah.
Well, iOS is the foundational level on which I get everything in my whole life done. I spend most of my working time on an iPad, and that synchronizes back with my iPhone. And I have a Mac that is at home, which is acting as a server, and I can kind of ping that server from my iPad to do things for me, which then come back. Like, there's an enormous amount of stuff that's going on here that I have set up. And 20% better is not worth the cost of switching over an incredibly complicated system that I have very fussily set up over a number of years. It just, at a certain point, it's just not worth it because I have to say,
but there must be a point where Android could become sufficiently better that you would switch. I mean, I spent years creating a great catalog of VHS tapes and audio cassettes. But eventually I had to say, well, they're now useless because I'm moving on. Like there must be a point where you would switch.
That's a bit of a different scenario, though, because VHS technology is not ongoing. We're talking about two ongoing paths.
Yeah. Okay.
And so
what about taking that 20%? There must be a point where it could anything happen in the world of Android that would suddenly make it compelling, or at least make you consider it.
It has to be a huge, obvious improvement across everything, because it integrates, like iOS integrates very well with my Apple stuff, which I use to edit the videos, like the podcast right now, recording this on a Mac Pro, and I'm going to use Logic for it. And so switching over to Android is not just, let me just change my phone.
Yeah.
It's also, I'm going to change the way I professionally make videos for a living. Yeah. And like now this is a very big question about what am I going to get? Am I going to get a Linux machine with video editing software that is comparable to what I currently use? That's why our switching costs can be very, very high once you don't necessarily have a huge amount of time to put into things. And the other thing that I think is a kind of unexpected problem is what you don't know about that might cause you trouble. So people, when I complain about something and then someone says, on Android, you can arrange the icons anywhere that you want. It's like, yes, okay, on that one particular issue, Android might be better, but you have to look at the whole set of problems and benefits you get with one thing versus the whole set of problems and benefits you get with another thing. It's a bit like when people tell me, to switch to Android if I've complained about something particular on iOS, it's a bit like if I'm complaining about my taxes and, taxes are really complicated and it causes me a lot of stress over the past 6 months and it's just been this hugely frustrating situation. And somebody says, why don't you become a bear? Bears don't have to worry about taxes. They don't have any of these kinds of problems. Bears just get to, live in the forest and you don't have to, all of these human problems you have, your worries about your pocket, your iPhone is too big. Bears don't have any of these issues. It's like, yes, but being a bear comes with a whole other set of problems, many of which I don't even know about at this stage.
I don't know. I think being a bear would be pretty cool.
I bet you would. If one of the two of us was going to live as a bear, I think everybody knows which one of us is going to be the bear.
I often think in many ways I already am.
You're halfway there as a caveman.
The other thing also is hardware. Hardware does lock you in and makes change also difficult. Like even with my camera, I bought a Canon DSLR and started buying all these lenses for it. Mm-hmm. And that made me buy a Canon video camera.
A C100. The Canon Nikon thing is the worst.
Yeah, and so suddenly, if someone was to say you should change cameras, okay, maybe, but I've invested so much in all my lenses now that I kind of, that's one of the things that locks you in. Once you make that decision for whatever reason you made, and you talked about why you made the decision when you made it, and then you start this kind of staggered buying of iMacs and MacBooks and iPads and iPhones.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, you kind of, and it's not like you can just change them all in one fell swoop. So
I think there is a certain kind of nerd who is just driven crazy by that notion that someone might fully well acknowledge that the other thing is better, but it does not compensate for the switching costs.
Oh yeah,
and that's just the way things actually are. Well, I should say that the comment that I see very particularly is people expressing disappointment in me because they go, I thought CGP Grey was such a smart guy. I can't believe he uses an Android phone. It's incredibly disappointing that he would make that sort of choice. It's just like that kind of thing I find so strange. And I think that is why the language of religion is sometimes appropriate when you talk about people picking sides in these iOS wars, because if you're the kind of person who really invests yourself in a particular platform, you almost have to come to the conclusion that everybody else who doesn't make the same decision as you is stupid, or they're just deluded, or they've been fooled by marketing. Because, you are all in on whatever your platform is. And so if everybody else doesn't use it, you think that you have made this awesome decision, and so you have to assume that everybody else is dumb or blinded. And I think that's just, I don't know. This is a much broader thing about why I hate labels in general. I don't think people should self-apply very many labels because it starts to limit your thinking and it changes the way you look at other people. And so it's like, I happen to use Mac stuff. There's a bunch of reasons for it. I'm not incredibly, I don't love Apple in the abstract. I use Apple because it gets things that I need done very easily. And part of the reason that works is because I already have Apple stuff. But I do actually think that it is better. But I can acknowledge that even if it wasn't, that the other alternatives would have to be much, much better to uproot the foundation of my whole life to change over.
Like if the house next door to my house, which is almost exactly the same, but was like 2% better because I had a nicer bathroom or something, like I wouldn't sell my house and buy that house because the pain in the neck of moving house and all the costs and all the taxes and all the things and all the time wouldn't be worth it just to get that slightly nicer bathroom sink. I think people, for whatever reason, you went all in at some point, and I'm sure, I don't know, maybe you're not open to it, but I'm sure you probably are open to change if something compelling came along, but it's got to be a lot more than, you can arrange your icons better.
Of course, you have to be open to change because otherwise that's just insanity, right? The other position is I will continue to use Apple software no matter how terrible it gets, which is the kind of implicit statement that people telling me to change over are sometimes making. They are arguing against this position. It's like, no, I'm not taking that position. If for some reason the whole company went terrible and they started producing awful stuff, well, that also affects the switching cost calculation, right? If the thing that I'm currently using is just absolutely terrible. But I mean, I'm just pulling a number out of a hat. I would say that at this point in my life, in order to change over everything, I would have to be looking at something like a 10x improvement in just the productivity or the features or however you want to measure it, because otherwise it's not worth taking the amount of time to switch over. So anyway, that's probably enough on this.
Do you want a Brady's paper cut?
I would love a Brady's paper cut.
Brady's paper cut is the security options of online banking. Two things in particular, three things, but I'll go with just two things, maybe, that annoy me. One is how long it takes before the page times out. I do not have a good attention span, and sometimes I'll start doing something and then I'll quickly check an email or a tweet or a Twitter or something, and then I come back and the page is timed out. I feel like they should give me a little bit more time. I don't know what the time they give me is, but it's not enough.
It's not enough?
It's not enough. And the main reason it's not enough is I have to re-log in. And I have enormous problems with this system they use where you have to give like the 3rd, 7th, and 9th letter of your password. I find that impossible. Like, is there something I don't know? I'm always just counting them out on my fingers and then getting one wrong, and then am I using my knuckle or what finger was I up to, and does my thumb count, and like, what's going on? Does it have to be that way?
I know why they do that, but it's still just it's infuriating.
You agree with me?
I completely agree with you. That logging into my bank is awful. And I hate the little dongle that I have to use. It's like I understand. Obviously, I don't want other people accessing my bank. So, if there's any case where inconvenience is worth the payoff of increased security, your bank is that place. But it is still very, very frustrating. I happen to use 1Password to manage a lot of the passwords on my computer, and for my banking stuff, what I have done with the passwords that they ask, where they say, "Oh, we want the 7.5 digit of your password," I have put a space after every 3, so I can very visually easily grab the ones they want. So if they say, "Oh, we want the 4th, the 9th, and the 13th," that's really easy to see if you've grouped the password into 3 space, 3 space, 3 space. So that's the way I get around it. But yes, I agree. It is very frustrating.
Nice advice. Yeah. Okay. I mean, as you know, I have my little notebook of passwords.
Oh yes, of course.
I have it written down, but then it like in red pen above, I have the numbers of the password above it, so I can read it off that. But if I haven't got my notebook, which I was going to say I'm not traveling with that notebook because I'm away from home for like 5 weeks. So I was going to say to you, I'm not.
Bring it?
Well, no, I didn't, which I think will please you. But the reason I didn't was because I actually forgot it in a last minute. I was really organised with my packing this time, which would have made you proud. But then at the very last minute, I decided to make a change of bags.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and there was one little pocket on the old bag that I forgot to transfer, which contained all my SD cards and all my notebooks of passwords and things like that. So they're all still at home, which is an enormous pain in the backside.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh, well.
So you're stranded without any of your passwords, except the ones you can remember off the top of your head.
Yeah, so there's a bit of password changing going on, but no, I'm actually doing all right. So, yeah. There you go. That was a paper cut, and you were on board with that. That was good to hear.
I agree with you when you're being reasonable.
We had an adventure, like a real life adventure.
We did.
I made a video recently, and you came along for the ride.
It was very exciting.
You left the London bubble.
I did, which is very rare.
That's one of the first times I've lured you out, actually. I must have, I don't know how I did it. I haven't been able to lure you to come up for, dinner or anything, but I lured you out for a film shoot, so. Did you enjoy the trip? You came up on the train? I know this, because I'm not going to pretend to ask you how you came up, because I picked you up from the train station. How was the train trip? Do you like trains? I get really excited going on a train trip. Like, I still, even though it's a bit of a pain in the backside these days, I still at the very start have that nice little feeling of excitement when I buy my copy of a magazine and a drink and sit down. Like, you must like that.
I do. I adore train stations. I absolutely love trains and everything about them. And yes, when I
you came from St. Pancras Station too, didn't you? Which is a brilliant station.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Did you come from St. Pancras?
Yeah, I came up from St. Pancras, which is beautiful, absolutely beautiful train station. It is the one which if you've seen the Harry Potter films, they're using the St. Pancras one, although it is King's Cross in the books because of some confusion for J.K. Rowling when she was writing the book. But if you've seen the exterior of that train station, that is the train station that I left from. And yes, I have to say that is one of the most gorgeous train stations I have ever seen. It's absolutely great. And so, yes, I also enjoy, I think it is very exciting to go get some coffee and be ready to go on a little train ride, even if it's a relatively short journey. So, yes, I love everything about trains. And it's funny, I made a note on this last journey because I thought, oh, Brady might like to know this. I thought of something that is old and obviously less convenient than the modern alternative, but that I like better. And I thought I would tell you about an old thing that I like.
Oh, man, I can't tell you how excited. I'm so excited right now.
I bet you are. I don't know what to call them, but I miss the clacky train signs that used to roll over when they would tell you when the platforms would change, and it would go clack, 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 clack. I have no idea what the name of those things are. But
they are cool. That's a good call.
Yeah. So I realized when I first moved to London, which is, I don't know, 11 years ago now. I can't even keep track of it. When I used to take trains all over the place, the stations that I went to, particularly Victoria Station, had those old clack things on them. So when you stand there and wait
Victoria,
for your platform.
Oh no, where's the one I used to go from? No, Victoria is the one I used to go to a lot too. Yeah.
And it was the same kind of thing. It was almost like this bizarre moment of excitement that once they start turning over, it's like, oh boy, it almost feels like
lottery balls.
Yes, that is exactly what I was thinking of. It's like the lottery balls rolling around and like, oh, what's going to come out? What platform is it going to be? Show me, strange clacking machine. And it makes a particular noise. And
there's some random element involved because things are hitting each other.
Yeah. And it's like, obviously it's predetermined. There's no randomness here. But it just feels exciting. And the noise is just such a train station-y kind of thing. And I was thinking about that when I was standing in St. Pancras.
You've got a heart.
I do. So I was thinking about that when I was standing at the platform and I was waiting to find out what train I was going to get on to see you. And I realized I'm just looking at this LED screen and I give this LED screen a thumbs down, even though I know it is a million times more practical for a train station to use all the LED screens, which is why they use them. But I thought, I could do with something that's a little bit more romantic here. Bring back the old train clacker signs. So
would you put one in your house?
My house is not a train station, so no, I wouldn't do that. Why would I put it in my house? Just to have it go off randomly? That's a terrible idea. It's a terrible idea.
All right. Anyway, besides the disappointment of not having a clacky sign, besides that disappointment, the train trip was all right, was it? It's not the most picturesque journey. You came up, it was Leicestershire we met in sort of the middle of England. It's not the most picturesque journey, that one from London up to Leicestershire. It's a pretty boring scenery.
Yeah, I guess the reason I'm hesitating there is because you know I'm a pretty optimistic guy about the future of the world and the state of society. I'm pretty optimistic.
Yeah.
The one time I feel clouds of foreboding on the future of civilization and the state of the world is if I'm on a train and I am in the quiet cabin and other people are not quiet. I don't understand the world, and it makes me really grumpy, and I feel like we're in the quiet train, people. Don't you understand? This is not the place for your cell phone conversation. You too elected to be on the quiet train.
There's a whole bunch of other cabins they could move to.
I know.
It's not like they're not catered to.
I know. This is why it's like, we have tried to have this little area where self-selecting people can go, and we can sit, and we can be quiet together and ignore each other. But when people are on the quiet train and they themselves cannot possibly be quiet, that is one time where I feel like all of society is doomed if we can't pull this little tiny bit off.
The only time I think it's okay to make noise and have a phone call in the quiet cabin is if it's me who needs to make the noise or make a phone call.
So you are the problem. That is great. That is exactly all right. So yeah. So that is what I assume every one of these people on the quiet train is thinking. Oh, my phone call conversation / unattended daughter who's running up and down the aisle. Oh, that's perfectly fine.
Oh, no, hang on. I didn't say anything about unattended daughters. That's different. I'm not having that.
I'm not saying, obviously you don't have an unattended daughter, but I'm sure that mother on my last train, who I was particularly irritated with, she's thinking the same thing too. Oh, my kid is totally fine. My phone conversation is totally fine. Sure, I'm in the quiet train. Everybody else is being quiet. They're giving me the stink eye, but it's fine because it's me.
I was joking. I am like I'm a very square. I'm a square. I follow the rules. I don't like breaking rules.
Why can't we pull this together, people? I'm not asking for a lot. It's a bit like when I used to be a teacher. I was always I don't know how to put this, but I found it hard to understand the kids who just couldn't be quiet. All I'm asking for is inaction. It is literally the easiest thing in the world. And you want to be loud and noisy, which is more effort. You seem to not be able to do nothing. You seem to have to do something.
It's you. They're like puppies. It's like you think, why won't you just go to sleep, puppy? They won't. They just want to do stuff. They've just got too much energy. It's like trying to contain the sun inside a lunchbox. It's just too much energy.
I don't know, maybe. But when people are talking in the quiet cabin, I look at them and I just think, I bet I know exactly what you were like in school. I bet you couldn't be quiet in school either. Quiet cabins make me feel like I can't believe this whole civilization project has worked out as well as it has, and makes me slightly gloomy. But aside from that, I had a lovely trip.
So, you came up to Leicestershire. Maybe you should tell people what was going on, because I think I'm a bit close to this project.
Yeah,
I think maybe you should explain why you came up.
So you invited me up because you had printed out 1 million digits of pi onto a 1 mile long strip of paper. And you'd flown out to Denmark to get this done, and you had this wheel of paper now here in England, and you were going to unroll it on an airstrip, which took you a while to find. And this was all in service of celebration for your 1 million subscriber numbers, which ties in very nicely with what we were talking about before.
This was my Nobel Prize moment.
Yes, it's just like the Nobel Prize if the Nobel Prize was YouTube subscribers and paper on an airplane runway.
Yeah.
So that's what this was. You printed out the 1 million digits. It was for your 1 million subscriber video. And yes, you found it was a former Air Force. It was a bit unclear to me what they were currently doing.
It's a place called Bruntingthorpe, and it was like a one of these World War II air bases. So it has the huge long runway, and it's gone through various incarnations since. but its current use is a car proving ground. So they use it as a car test track, and the main runway is like the main straight, and the old taxiways are sort of for driving. And it's also used for storing cars. There's like thousands upon thousands of cars there, but it is also an aircraft kind of museum / storage place. So they've got all these Cold War jets, and they must have had 15 747 planes, and they'd just taken delivery of a 747, which also was why you and I were talking about 747s. They'd just taken a delivery of a retired Cathay Pacific 747, which was just sitting at the end of the runway, like still looking with all the livery on it and looking like it could just turn around and take off at any moment. It didn't look like it was retired. It just looked like it had been parked there, which it pretty much was. The security guy told me it was totally airworthy, like it could fly.
Yeah, so if we could just follow a checklist, we would have been able to fly off with that 747.
I wonder how much fuel was in it. I don't know, but conceivably. That would have been a hell of a 1 million subscriber video. Yeah. CGP Graham Brady jump in a 747 and just say, "We're doing it, man. We're doing it."
I wonder if we actually did steal a 747, how long would it take before the RAF would just shoot us out of the sky?
I don't think they'd necessarily need to, but I don't know. I'd be like, I've seen a few episodes of Air Crash Investigation. I can handle this bad boy.
I'm just thinking of that. There's a rogue 747 in British airspace. I don't think that would last very long. I don't think that would stay up for very long.
What a video that would make, though. The day two YouTubers stole a 747 and then got shot out of the...
Yeah, the video they'd have to recover from the black box, though. I mean, from the rubber.
Listen, we'd have GoPros everywhere, man. I'd have it covered. Anyway, that's pretty much, that's what we did. And there was how many people? There was about 10 people there?
10 people in the end, I think.
So I think you were there ostensibly just to be an observer, to witness the spectacle.
Well, this was how it was pitched. It was pitched as come along and watch this fun thing that we're going to do. And so that is what I signed up for. But at the end of the day, I had a slightly busted ankle, and my hands were very dirty, and I'd been jumping in and out of a van, and it was raining and dropping traffic cones all over the place. That is, honest to God, the most physical labor I have probably done in like 10 years.
You totally mucked in. I was pretty impressed. You were, you were good. You were good.
I think it was one of those things. It became very clear to all of us very fast that this was a big job, and it was going to be slow going.
We maybe had bitten off more than we could chew.
Yeah, this was very quickly a we need all hands on deck situation, and it still felt to me like we just barely pulled that thing off in the end with 10 guys dealing with traffic cones and unrolling the paper and all kinds of craziness. But it was I have to say, it was very fun. I was very glad that you invited me along, and I really enjoyed the day in spite of the physical labor that I was not told about in advance.
It was very different. It was very different to what, like everything in life is different to what you expect, isn't it? And maybe there was a high degree of brain cracking going on here. But then when
what were you expecting the day to be like? What did you think? We were just going to roll it down the runway on its own?
The paper, the mile-long piece of paper, was more difficult to manage than I expected. Mm-hmm. And we obviously there was bits and pieces of rain on the day, which probably wasn't the biggest problem. It was inconvenient, and although in some ways maybe we were lucky because it did maybe make things stick down a bit more and weighed the paper down a bit. But the problem was wind. Like, I didn't quite comprehend how susceptible to wind that piece of paper would be. And the wind was very merciful to us. It was not a windy day. If that had been a really windy day, can you imagine it just wouldn't have happened, would it?
Yeah, it wouldn't have happened. There was the slightest of breezes, and it turned out that was a huge problem. When you're dealing with a mile-long strip of paper and trying to keep it on a runway in a very, very flat area, that tiny bit of a breeze was a huge problem. So we were quite lucky with the weather because, yes, you kept messaging me fretting about the rain, and
This is like, the night before, yeah.
For a week before you were fretting about the rain and sending me messages. I can go back in my iMessage history and pull up all the times you started to worry about it. But neither of us even thought about the wind as a potential issue, and that turned out to be the real big problem.
There were lots of comments under the final video saying, why did you do it on such a wet, grey day? Like, people, do people think I just could turn up to a runway and use it on any day I liked? Like, I don't know what people think, but for those who don't realise this, like, I booked this airfield in advance, and you can't have these places anytime you like. Like, whatever the weather was going to be was what the weather was going to be, and there was no... And it was also not like, it wasn't given to me. This was like an outlay. Like, I invested in this because I don't know why I did it, because I just loved the idea too much.
Yeah,
so
the idea was very fun. And yes,
I was all in. I was all in. And whatever the weather was what we had to deal with. So.
Yeah, I've been hearing about you planning this for quite a while. Like, it took a while to find a place to print a mile-long piece of pie, and it took a while to find the airstrip. But I do like, you always get these kinds of comments whenever you do anything in public, where people say, oh, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? And so, there's a million reasons why we didn't do it just the way that you might have suggested. And I do love the notion that you could just rock up at the airstrip at any time and say, let's unroll that paper today. And also just... Even if the airfield said, oh, come down whenever, we're not using it, don't worry, you still need to coordinate 10 other people and their schedules to get everybody there at the same time. And so you can't just roll out of bed one Sunday morning, stretch your arms, take a look out the window and say, today looks like the day we're going to unravel the pie. So it's a lot of planning in these kinds of things, but it came off very well. You should feel very pleased about it.
It was. I need more people to watch it. It hasn't been watched by many people, but
if you haven't already paused it and go watch the video, you should definitely
Google mile of pie.
I'll put it in the show notes. I'll put it in the show notes.
Cool. I had some help with a couple of people who are much better at operating cameras than me, and we had a drone to do sort of all these cool aerial shots. Tell me that's not the coolest toy.
The drone is amazing. The drone footage looks great, and it was very fun to see the drone in action on the day. Drones are just great.
I kind of want to get one, but I can't. But I can't.
Yeah, is it going to go right next to your telescope?
Which is still in the box.
No, this is exactly. And I'm sure there are a number of other toys around your house.
My water jet washer, still in the box.
Water jet washer? I don't remember this one.
Yeah.
What does it wash?
It's like, well, you can wash cars with it or blast pavements and things like that, but they're just cool things, and I think they look cool, and I got one last Christmas, and I still haven't used it.
Last Christmas, okay, yeah. So this is the problem of yes, maybe you could get a drone. I imagine it would sit in a box in your house for quite a while before you ever actually unpacked it and tried to play with it. And
there's also a lot of laws and things, depending on what you want to do and how you want to use it. It's not trivial. Where I live is like quite a quaint seaside town. Like, it looks really old-fashioned. It looks like from a Victorian era, and it's got this old pier, and it's the seaside's got all old buildings. Like, it hasn't been like modernized. It's very quaint and lovely. And a couple of times a year, there's this steamer that comes out, this old-fashioned steamer, and it goes to a few of the piers along the coast and picks tourists up and takes them on a big day trip. And I was there. I was having like breakfast by the seaside with my wife the other day. Like, it's very lovely, all very lovely. And then the woman serving us breakfast says, oh, the steamer's coming today. And we're like, oh, we had no idea. Oh, that's lovely. She said, oh, it'll be here in half an hour. Make sure you stay for it. So we went and sat on a bench by the sea and looking at the pier. And then we heard the steamer coming from around the other side of the point. And like, you could have been gone back 100 years. Like, that's what it was like. It really was like you'd gone back in time. And just as the steamer started coming towards the pier and everyone's like breath was taken away by the beauty of the majesty of it all, this guy with a drone,
oh no,
who obviously wanted to capture the moment, sent his drone up.
Yeah, they are so loud. They are so much louder than people
went flying out over the sea, and then hovered it above the steamer and above the pier for the whole time the steamer pulled up, and the whole time the people boarded, and then the whole time it pulled out and did its like, big unwieldy 3-point turn. It would have been the most beautiful thing ever, except the whole time.
Oh man,
And this little mosquito of a robot was ruining the whole thing. And all the pictures, we were taking with our phones to capture the moment all had this bloody little white helicopter in it. So I do love them, and it certainly made the pie video fantastic, but there's a time and a place, maybe. I don't know what to think. It certainly ruined it for me, but I'm sure he got some lovely footage, the guy of the steamer.
Yeah, I mean, this is where in the I don't know, in the eternal conflict between, say, the progress of technology and laws regulating that technology, in which the laws are behind the times normally. I usually side with let's go with the technology here, but the drones are definitely one issue where it's like, whoa, we need to decide as a society very quickly what the rules are going to be about these things, because the price of the drones are just dropping very quickly. And sure, right now it's only one guy with a drone, but they are so loud that it's like this is one of the very rare cases where I would say I think we really need to sort out the legislation before we start having tons of drones in the sky. That when they hit a point where they are very, very cheap, and in particular when we hit a point at which like Amazon is working on. You're talking about automated drones and drone delivery, and it's like we need to sort out some stuff in advance before this happens, because
rather than chopping the price, I wish they'd do something to chop the noise.
Well, this is what I mean is that legislate some kind of decreasing decibel level over time. So, you cannot legally sell a drone that is louder than X decibels this year, and next year it's going to be X minus 5 decibels. And let's bring this down over time to make sure they're quiet. Because yes, a lot of the issue with them, I think, would be resolved if they were quieter. But it's also just in the States, there have been some cases that have come out about what is reasonable expectation of privacy with people's homes and drones in airspace, and you have cameras on those, and it's like parts of people's houses that were never accessible from street level view are very accessible from a higher level view with a drone, and there's lots of questions about this kind of stuff. And so yes, the drones are super cool, but we do need to decide what the rules are going to be about these things.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I would be very annoyed as well if I was enjoying the sight of an old steamer and some guy's drone was ruining the whole thing for everybody.
But with the pie thing, what a cool shot that was. It goes over the 747 and then comes down
for all we know, there was some guy's house just on the other side of the tree line who was sitting out in his backyard and constantly annoyed by the loud droning.
He was nude sunbathing,
yeah. But those shots are beautiful. That is for sure.
Yeah. What did the whole thing put you off or give you a taste for making real life videos with humans and nature and stuff?
I have on occasion thought about doing videos that are real life videos, but I'm aware that this is probably not my skill set, and it's also a question of trying to learning how to do that versus learning or doing that versus doing the current projects that I have. This is also the problem of just being a self-employed person, is you have way more projects that you want to do than you possibly have time and ability to do. And there are a number of things around London that I constantly think about. Ooh, I'd love to do this as a real life video. But I know from watching you work on other occasions, and particularly on this Pi Day, that it is so much more work behind the scenes than you ever think it is. I mean, you had Matt Parker was there on the day with us, who was the kind of on-screen Pi expert. And you were just driving up and down this runway with him for a huge portion of the day, just constantly filming him talk about interesting sections of Pi and little facts about this sequence of numbers or that sequence of numbers. And I mean, I'm going to guess probably half of that you didn't use in the final video. I don't even know.
I did put it in the big long extra.
Yeah, well, your extra one is half an hour long, but the actual million subscribers video, I'm going to guess you used maybe half of the material you actually filmed.
Not even that. No. Nowhere near that. Yeah.
So I am very much aware of these things are a lot more work than than people probably think they are. You know, all of the videos that you film, there's so much more that you have to capture than you actually do. So I think I'll probably leave the in real life videos to you. I think that's probably a wise decision.
Well, I did get much amusement from seeing you lugging traffic cones around, and you're a real workhorse. I was using you for your brawn, not your brains. That's for sure.
Yeah, that is definitely the case. Yeah, we're just.
How fun was it driving on a runway, though?
You seem to really enjoy that. You like to go.
I did
very
offer
fast.
to let you drive. Like, I was seeing how fast I could go, and I did say at one point, "Do you want to do the next drive and see how fast you can go?"
And I had no interest in doing this. No.
Why not? I thought maybe you'd say yes, but you said no.
I did say no.
Were you worried about rolling my car over?
Well, yeah, first of all, I was shocked that you would let somebody else drive your car on the day, and you were just like handing your keys to every passing stranger and like letting them drive your car up and down the runway. So I couldn't believe that you were that generous with your personal items. But no,
there wasn't much to hit. To be fair, I wouldn't be giving my keys to people if it was like, you know, a busy car park or something.
But still, if the positions were reversed and somehow that was my car, you can bet no one would be driving my car. But
I had no choice. Necessity is the mother of generosity.
I guess so. But I guess I have never driven a car in the UK. I've never been on the opposite side of a car.
Well, that's why I thought this was the perfect chance for you on like this 2-mile long runway that was like must have been 100 meters wide as well. Like, this was your perfect chance to, you know, take a baby step.
I'm not a huge fan of driving, and I don't ever plan to really drive in the UK. So this is a baby step towards nowhere. And
fair enough.
I would not enjoy driving fast just for the sake of it, because that feels like, oh, let's live dangerously for no benefit. And I say no, thank you to that.
Well, there's the benefit of getting where you need to go a bit quick. I'm not a fast driver. I am an old granny driver, as many people would say. And even when I was like letting loose and going for super speed, like we weren't really going that fast. So it's not like I would have been there saying faster, Gray, you know, break the sound barrier. But anyway, it was fun. It was fun. It was just fun driving on a runway, like not for the speed, just for the like. It had like
the novelty.
Yeah, it was just something you don't normally do. And one of my favorite moments was we had this problem weighing down the piece of paper because in the end we were using traffic cones. We used a few bags of sand that I brought along, but we ran out of sand pretty quick. And then we were using traffic cones, and we ran out of traffic cones. So we needed more weight. So I went looking for stuff. And in the end, by luck, at the other end of the 2-mile runway, I found a whole bunch of traffic cone bases, like just the base of cones. And they were really, really heavy. So you and I started ferrying back and forward and picking up all these bases and bringing them back to the team who were unrolling. But the other thing that was down the other end of that runway.
Oh, yes.
There was like, the runway had like a big giant hedge running along one side. And then at the end of the runway, it like turned in a right angle to sort of cover the end of the runway. So it was this big right angled hedge, and sort of buried in this right angle was like, it wasn't like the wreckage, but it was like the fuselage of an old plane that had its wings removed, and it was in bad condition, and it looked a mess, and I assume it's used for training or something or spare parts, I don't know, but it looked pretty bad, and it was just in the corner. So that was Plane Crash Corner.
Yeah, it looked just like a plane crash, and it was
right, and it was tucked right in this right angle, so it couldn't have looked more corner like. And I was like, you know what that is, and you're like, what? I was like, that's Plane Crash Corner. And suddenly you went, yes! And we even went and took selfies.
Yes, we did. I like your impression of me, by the way. Is that how I sound? What?
Well, yeah, you were unusually slow on the uptake, but maybe you were just in a different headspace to me. So I was like, and then like your face lit up when you realized. Maybe you were just exhausted from lugging all those cones.
Yes, because you were driving the car and I was pulling the cone bases out of the back of the car. So.
Oh yeah, but like when we were dropping them off, we had to drop them off staggered. So I was driving along at just a couple of miles an hour, and you were like having to run to catch up and pull them out of the moving car. That was a bit Indiana Jones of you in a way. It was quite good, wasn't it?
Yes, it was very daring of me. It was mostly just dirty because those cones were in some kind of typhoid swamp water at the end of the runway. It was just awful. It was really just awful.
It was a bit unhygienic, I'll give you that.
All I kept thinking of was, oh God, dude, just don't cut your hands on anything here. Like, you don't want this water touching your circulatory system. You're like, who knows what's in here? It was really just awful, but
it was bad.
I still, despite all of it, it was a very interesting and very very fun day, and interesting for me to see you pulling off a project, managing a whole bunch of people, and just all of this activity going on in different places throughout the day. It was quite an experience, and I'm glad that you invited me up.
It was. I have to say, like it looks and sounds almost heroic, but it was very unusual for me. I never do things of this scale. And the thing that was really different for me, and I imagine maybe this is what it's like for people who work on big Hollywood movies, not that obviously I'm not comparing this to a movie, but it was when you start doing something that involves this level of teamwork, you suddenly are unaware of like so much stuff, like because there was a team that was using this big contraption to roll out the paper, and they were kind of going ahead and just rolling out the paper, and they were dealing with their own sets of problems and things that worked and didn't work and challenges. And then a lot of the time I was with Matt doing sort of filming further down the paper, talking about numbers and stuff like that. And then there were other little sub-teams that were sent off on a mission to go and find more cones or do this and that. Like, everyone had a really different experience of the day. Mm-hmm. And like I was watching back the footage from the other people who were helping film like a day or two later. Mm-hmm. And there was just whole things that I'd completely missed about the day. Mm-hmm. And it was quite a new thing for me, who's very sort of independent and does everything on my own. It was quite a new thing and quite a different and nice experience to sort of see. And I can imagine if you're making a film and you have, second units going and doing other things and set designers and costume people, like there's a whole world going on you're unaware of.
Right.
And that was a slightly new experience for me I used to work in television, and putting together the TV news, so I'm aware of making a program where there are whole elements I had nothing to do with. Mm-hmm. But this was in a different way because I was kind of the boss and had to put the final thing together. It was a really weird sensation, and like to not see the drone footage for 2 or 3 days and then have it sent to me, and it's like a new surprise, like days after the event. It was a really weird sensation.
But you're glad you did it?
Yeah.
So what's the next big project going to be?
There is one other one which is sort of in the pipeline, but I don't think it will ever happen. And once it's confirmed it won't happen, I might not talk about it. But in case it does happen, I can't talk about it.
Oh, okay, you can tell me. You can tell me off.
Not just you know about it. It's not just for secrecy. It's also for security reasons.
I've forgotten. I'm bad. Yeah. I'm a bad friend. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, so I can't talk about that one. But that would be, it wouldn't be as like difficult and as grand, but it would be maybe quite eye-catching. But other than that, all pretty normal. I tell you what, I've been meeting some interesting people the last few days. I didn't tell you about this. I met a vice president of Google.
Oh yeah.
I met a person, one of those people who works at Apple but can't tell you anything about what they do, which was my first experience of that.
I imagine that's most people at Apple.
Yeah. But he seemed important.
Right.
And
I'm sure all their business cards just say from Apple and there's no titles. That's how I imagine it. Pure white business card.
And last night I met one of the world's richest men. He's been described as the world's smartest billionaire.
I was going to ask on Twitter who that was, but then I thought,
he's a guy called Jim Simons.
Jim Simons.
Jim Simons, who hardly anyone's heard of. He used to run a.
I'm reaching for Google right now.
Do it. He used to run a hedge fund that relies completely on mathematics, and like it's one of those, the computer makes the decision, and millions of transactions are happening every day in trades, and he's a mathematician at heart, and then he became super, super rich by applying algorithms to the markets. It's worth, what does it say there? 13 billion or something like that? Crazy rich.
Yeah, $12.5 billion.
Also incredibly generous, incredibly smart. I was impressed by him. I was impressed by his talk. I only spoke to him for a minute or two afterwards, but I was very impressed by him. He does not wear socks, which I found very interesting.
Is this a... Okay.
I have it in the back of my head that someone had told me that was the case, and I think maybe I've also read it somewhere else. But
did you ask him? Was this part of your interview?
I didn't interview him.
Okay.
No, I was just chatting to him. But he wears... Because whenever I meet someone who's really, really rich, like I've met a few really rich people. I've met like Rupert Murdoch and his sons a few times and stuff. I'm always really fascinated by what they wear and their clothes. And so I always like to see, do they look different to a normal person? Could you tell that person was a billionaire if you didn't know they were a billionaire? So I was just looking at how he dressed. He was dressed very normal, just normal slacks and a jacket and that. And he was wearing like nice loafers. I'm sure they were really expensive Italian loafers, but they just look like nice, really nice brown loafers and no socks. I do not know why he doesn't wear socks. I must ask someone. But that was my abiding memory. I have a few abiding memories of what he said. He was very wise and interesting. But my abiding memory of what he looked like was he does not wear socks.
I'm sure that's how he wants to be remembered.
I think he's all right. I think there's a few things he'll be remembered for. He's made a lot of really great mathematical discoveries. Like he's got a few things named after him. He's not a trivial mathematician. But then at some point in the 70s or 80s or something, he said, all right, let's try this market thing. Mm-hmm. And he cracked it big time. Would you like to be really, really rich?
Obviously, yes. I mean, who's going to say no to that? People who aren't honest with themselves, maybe? Is that the people who say no?
You're quite practical, though, and it's no secret that being incredibly rich, comes with its own set of problems. And quite a big set of problems. So of course you would like a few $1 million and never have to work again. But I'm talking billions. Like, would you like to be that kind of guy? Like, one of the richest men in the world type rich.
Here's the thing: is I think this James Simons guy, this is exactly the kind of way that you want to be rich, is almost completely anonymous, right? Nobody really knows who this person is. I think Bill Gates kind of rich is a whole different story, right? Bill Gates, I don't think there's a place on the face of the earth Bill Gates can go without being recognized as Bill Gates. And that is a different question. Do you want to be rich and famous? No, thank you. Fame is not a desirable thing at all. So to be very, very wealthy is good as long as you are also not shockingly famous. So that's the way I look at it. That many of the downsides of being very wealthy are from other people knowing that you are very wealthy, and in particular, strangers knowing that you are very wealthy. So
yeah, I mean, strangers knowing you're wealthy raises lots of extra issues, and that's a good point you make. But even if you're quite an anonymous billionaire, everyone who knows you is going to know that. And that creates an interesting dynamic, doesn't it, with your friends and your family?
But this is why billionaires have billionaire friends. This is the whole thing, right? Is it's like as much as we as a society might like to pretend otherwise, I think it is practically very difficult for someone who actually has billions of dollars to be friends with just normal people, right? The rest of us, because the gap in life is just so enormous that it, like, what are you even going to talk about sometimes? So I think this is also the same reason why celebrities tend to marry other celebrities. It's not because that they think they're better than everybody else and they're super exclusive. This is the orbit of people who understand the kinds of problems that you have if you are a wealthy and famous celebrity, and they can intermingle in a way that it's harder to mix with people outside of that group. So that's fine. Billionaires are friends with billionaires. Rich celebrities are friends with rich celebrities, and that I think that makes perfect sense. So I guess really what I'm saying here is, ideally I would like to somehow completely anonymously have billions of dollars and also have nobody know it. That would be ideal. That'd be the best situation.
I'm trying to think how I can be absolutely sure you don't have billions of dollars. Because you wouldn't. If anyone was going to keep it a secret, it would be you. But also, I think you wouldn't be doing the podcast if you.
Well, I think, yes. From what the other things that you know about me.
See, I would still be doing the podcast if I had billions of dollars. But I don't think you would.
Well, this is it. Everything you know about me says that the very fact that I work as much as I do is an indication that I don't have billions of dollars. But maybe I'm being really clever, and this is actually my cover for having billions of dollars. but it isn't, sadly.